This has been the toughest case of my one-case career. This is a mystery that even Nancy Drew would find tough to solve. But a good detective looks at all the evidence and follows all the clues. All I've used in this project is science. My tech support team and I relied on government, college, and university websites for all my information. I only use science. That I can understand and what we're learning in school. Plus, I'm too young for politics. I've identified all my suspects and put them in a lineup. But how do I compare suspects that are so different? I don't want this to be an apples and oranges kind of thing. And that got me thinking. Since my goal was to show how human burning of fossil fuels was the leading cause of global warming and climate change, wouldn't it make sense to look at how each suspect warms the globe? And then we can explore how each one affects the climate. This makes it apples to apples. And then maybe see what it would look like if each suspect did not exist and their effect on CO2. Kind of oranges to oranges. Alright, let's take a look at our first suspect, the Sun. Without the Sun, the Earth would be an asteroid. NOAA scientists concluded times of depressed solar activity seem to correspond with times of global cold. Temperatures can drop by 2 to 3 degrees Fahrenheit. Conversely, times of increased solar activity have corresponded with global warming. The smooth sunspot number reached a peak of 81.9 in April 2014. That marked the beginning of a cooling phase when solar activity decreases, greenhouse gases increase to keep the Earth's temperature comfortable. So the sun definitely warms the planets and it is the major player in the climate game, but it doesn't produce CO2. Now, this is a very important clue. NOAA reports that interglacial periods tend to happen during times of more intense summer solar radiation in the northern hemisphere. So both the change to the Earth's orbit and the change to the Earth's tilt are warming the planet, but neither produce CO2 by themselves. If the Earth was fully cooled and there were no moving tectonic plates or seams allowing CO2 to escape, Earth would be Mars. The ability to self-regulate the Earth's atmosphere depends on maintaining the magic blend. Homeostasis is a process whereby the environment tends to remain balanced and stable. Barometric pressure is the main interface between the atmosphere and the tectonic plates. As the atmosphere gains weight due to an increase in water vapor and CO2 in one spot on the globe, this generates heat, as the greenhouse gases absorb and store the energy from the sun. The pressure from this weight pushes down on the surface of the Earth, and just like our toothpaste tube example, causes volcanic and outgassing activity in other areas with lower pressure. This is another cause of wind, stabilizing the temperature. The magic blend is adjusted and we have balance. Temperature is stored in the oceans. The first statement of the second law of thermodynamics states that heat flows from hot to cold. Currents move those temperatures, and it is the main creator of wind. And as I've said over and again, wind moves climate. Currents move land in continental drift. Is land moving? And both affect climate. With no currents, the ocean would be a swamp and dinosaurs would still roam. And much of the suspects run in cycles. There are cycles within cycles within cycles. We have a full moon every month, a winter every year, El Nino every few years, and an ice age every 100 millenniums, patterns and predictably and interactions with each other. All of these and other cycles affect the climate. And then there's the most important cycle of all, The carbon cycle. Earth, our mother ship, has a fixed amount of carbon stored on it. No significant new carbon is being delivered. Carbon is stored in a lot of places. It is stored in the ocean by dissolving into the water and by feeding marine organisms. It is stored in plants and trees through photosynthesis. And it is constantly being recycled. My grandpa always says the nice thing about numbers, they're always in order. So I asked him to help me with the spreadsheet. We looked at the carbon cycle presented by the fabulous Texas A&M University. They demonstrate that less than 3% of the total CO2 absorbed by the ocean, by vegetation, and by marine organisms is from the burning of fossil fuels. Less than 3%, and that's less than 1%, of what can be stored in the atmosphere. And that got me thinking. Southward continental drift is having a warming effect. Population growth is having a warming effect through increased methane creation, deforestation, cement production, and exhaling CO2. The increasing amount of water brought up from the underground has a warming effect by adding more water vapor, a greenhouse gas, to the atmosphere. Increased storm activity is nature's way of gaining access to rocks so that it can weather them. Dissolve them to access the stored CO2 and add that to the atmosphere. This has a warming effect. So does the dark water. El Nino has a warming effect. Volcanic activity has doubled since 1970. Volcanic activity warms the oceans and warms the climate through increased CO2 and methane emissions. Earth's changing orbit and tilt both having a warming effect. And lastly, the human burning of fossil fuels has a warming effect by increasing CO2 in the atmosphere. And this is where I realized that there was a curious climate connection. All of my suspects contribute to global warming. Every single one. But only one has been singled out by Senator Whitehouse and Sanders. Curiously, the only connection they made to global warming was humans burning fossil fuels. And then I thought that was because that is the only one we can do something about. And then it hit me. The sun is going into a cycle where fewer sunspots have a cooling effect, and all the other suspects are doing what they can do to offset this cooling effect. Could it be that the increase in volcanic activity may be nature's way of adjusting the temperature balance? Is the amount of CO2 in the atmosphere too low? Could it be warning us that we are not burning enough fossil fuels? Did I just solve the mystery? Or did I just say the silliest thing ever? Did I just become a climate change denier? Or does it make a lot of sense? If humans burning fossil fuels warms the planet through the greenhouse effect or by changing the climate, and either one or both causes the ice caps and glaciers to melt, and those melting ice caps and glaciers cause the sea levels to rise, and those rising sea levels threaten coastal communities, and the most of the population lives near the coast, then I think we have another curious climate connection. What if 15 countries in Africa that do not have a coastline get together and create a huge pit? And what if they kept filling it with coal and oil and light it on fire? There are huge untapped deposits of coal and oil in Central Africa. They could produce enough CO2-filled pollution to warm the climate and melt the ice caps and glaciers and raise the sea level high enough to give them all ports. Some of the science says yes. As my grandpa always says, if you throw a rock in the air, only two things can happen. You get hit in the head or you get out of the way. In either case, that rock is coming down. There are both cases where burning fossil fuels can be used as a threat. For 4.5 billion years, the Earth has blistered through the cosmos at not only 67,000 miles per hour, but while spinning at more than 1,000 miles per hour, what's not disputable is the magic blend that was formed around the planet in the atmosphere, in which mankind was created and destined to thrive. It keeps climate comfortable and it protects us on this journey through space. This is by no means a delicate balance. The Earth is used to violent and constant change as it maintains the survivability. And that brings us to the most revealing question of all. If humans stop burning fossil fuels altogether, would the climate go back to normal? A harder question to answer is, what is normal? It seems change is normal. It seems the recipe for the magic blend is fluid. And if you really think that sea levels are rising, you should probably spend more money on levee technology. And speaking of fluid, will my future be underwater? I don't think so. And yes, mankind cannot be ruled out as a contributor. But the leading cause? Where in that whole mix can you see it's the leader and how do you prove it? Several NOAA studies found no conclusive evidence linking human-caused climate change and the California drought. I'm afraid I'm moving human use of fossil fuels down to an accomplice. And that got me thinking. Generating electricity uses a lot of water. Hydroelectric dams need to store a lot of water. Coal mining uses incredible amounts of water. Fracking is all water, and so is biomass. Nuclear plants need water to cool the system and are always built near a body of water. Solar panels use large amounts of water to cool the power plants and for steam recycling. Solar panel farms cause drainage problems as well. Geothermal uses steam, and some big cities like New York City deliver steam to heat buildings. So it looks like we're converting water into electricity, with a little wind. Of course, all that wind from Washington, D.C. uses a lot of water. Wouldn't the $51 billion spent on climate change each year work better saving water? Sandia National Labs told me the electricity industry is second only to agriculture as the largest user of water in the United States. Electricity production from fossil fuels and nuclear energy requires 190,000 million gallons of water per day, accounting for 39% of all freshwater withdrawals in the nation, with 71 of that going to fossil fuel electricity generation alone. Coal, the most abundant fossil fuel, currently accounts for 52% of U.S. electricity generation, and each kWh generated from coal requires withdrawal of 25 gallons of water. That means U.S. citizens may indirectly depend upon as much water turning on the lights and running appliances as they directly use taking showers and watering lawns. Senator Sanders wants to charge the coal burners $42 billion per year. I think that's a lot of money. Sounds like everyone's electric bill is going to go up. Everyone, especially the people that can't afford an energy audit. Now, I think pollution is a very bad thing. And if senators' goal is to clean up the air, I'm all in for that. That would be a much easier video to make. And a shorter one. We can fly over volcanoes. We can travel by boat or car to see others. We can send cameras underwater to see even more. Population growth records are simple to find. It's easy to go to the beach and see the muddy water after a storm. We can go to NASA and look at all their thermometers. We can use GPS to measure continental drift and drive to the shore to see the changing coastline. We can send thermometers all over the ocean, and especially where the currents travel through volcano fields. We can look at water meters on houses to see how much water is going back into the evaporative cycle. We can drill cores deep into the earth to date ice ages. We can use items from the kitchen to count sunspots. And we can calculate the changes to Earth's orbit and tilt with a telescope, a compass, and a protractor, and a piece of scratch paper. There is only one reason we need a scientist. That is to have them explain how CO2 reflects sunlight when the only time I can see my exhale is when it's freezing outside. I do think there is a limited supply of easily accessible fossil fuels, and we should use as much alternative, sustainable, and more renewable fossil fuels as we can. But for the right reasons. I think we should use less electricity because that uses less water. There is so much science on both sides of the argument. You can sound smart whichever way you go. All I wanted to do was make a video showing how burning fossil fuels was the leading cause of global warming and climate change. But the facts kept getting in my way. I have come up with some small ideas that may help. We should change the building code and require every new house to have an electrical plug and play. That way, all the homeowner has to do is purchase and install the adapter, and all kinds of electricity generating devices could hit the meter. If the homeowner wants to install solar panels or wind turbines, it would be as simple as install and plug in. If I wanted to use a stationary bicycle or attach a generator to my favorite rocking chair, no problem. Small water turbines could be attached to my dishwasher, washing machine, or sprinkler system to generate power when I use water. This would lead to tinkering, like using misters and pivot balls on your solar panels, and advance the technology at the user end. That way people could get a utility credit while they get in shape. Just don't get my grandpa started on his rooftop and wind sail idea. And I think xeriscape and gray water should be taught in school. I like it that cars get better gas mileage. That saves water too. And we need to keep the oceans as clean as we can. A lot of little things that my grandpa's generation could do will pay it forward. I heard this one the other day. We don't inherit the earth from our ancestors. We borrow it from our grandchildren. I like that. I don't know if I solved this case because I wasn't able to prove that burning of fossil fuels causes global warming or climate change by itself. But I may have solved an even bigger mystery. I know that I sure learned a lot, and I had a great time with my grandpa. Thank you for tuning in.